The World Free Zones Organization presents New World Model, the Future of Industry. Featuring Bishar Hussain from the Universal Postal Union, Mats Granryd from the GSM Association, Vinod Kumar from Vodafone Business, Javier Anglada from Accenture.
Welcome to our virtual discussion on the digital communications sector. The speaker we have interviewed for you have explored the challenges and opportunities facing companies pushing through with digital transformation, adjusting to digital vectors of communication, and seeking new infrastructure to move more business online to the cloud. The questions cover the evolution of the crisis, the vectors of change observed in the industry, the way in which business models would evolve, and the impact on the global supply chain. Each speaker's full interview is also available on the event site for your viewing pleasure. Be sure to look out for our industry report on the sector, which we will publish shortly after this event. I hope you will obtain valuable intelligence from this panel, along with the other online discussions, interview, and live webinars that this event has to offer.
What has changed most radically in the industry during this crisis?
So what happened is that once the airlines have shut down and once everything has shut down, countries have closed their borders, then naturally everything that flows through the borders also closed down. So our mail is affected, and then we have begun to see a substantial decline in our cross-border mail.
COVID has actually, in an odd way, highlighted the value of telcos to both users and policymakers. Customers, individuals, as well as businesses have used connectivity and all the services that our industry offers for a long period of time.
What has changed the most, I think, is the understanding that networks need to be resilient. And we as business people and getting in contact with our loved ones as well is equally important.
Second thing, we're seeing that people is virtually communicating more, socializing more, and they want to continue to do this after. So 50% of the people said that they've been touching base with family, friends intensively these days of lockdown. And 74% they say that they want to continue to do this afterwards. So there is a material change in user behavior.
Which types of companies have been the most affected?
So we've seen a significant increase in demand for various kinds of collaboration solutions. All our SaaS offerings that we have in our marketplace for small and medium enterprises and large customers have seen a pickup in demand.
Many people will not want to go and buy things from the shops. So this has limited the purchasing behavior or habits of the citizens. Now the posts have become very handy. You can buy online, and therefore the posts actually do the delivery.
But on the flip side, we've seen broadband services exploding. The consumption has increased X-folds, but as well cloud services. The remote workplace management has been very relevant across all the countries we've surveyed. Security has become as well at the mainstream of all these efforts.
The positive side is that the ones that have a forward-looking and more taking keener interest in digital services, they will certainly flourish in this new digital world. So there is both an upside and a downside here.
In what region will the impact be most severe in the short term?
Our business is very central to what everyday life. So we touch people's lives. So the regions that are most affected currently is the Latin American countries where the COVID is very high. The Africa region is very much also affected. Of course, in Europe, cross-border is also the same thing. I mean, this is across the board. But more specifically, I think the developing countries are feeling the brunt of this COVID more than even the industrialized countries here in Europe.
Early indicators from what we're seeing in our portfolio is that the Southern European countries have been the most impacted. And that's due to a high dependence our customers have on tourism and retail and the hospitality industry in general.
We're seeing others where basically access to cloud has been more pervasive. There's more competition on that. There's been more a historic push into transferring the service into the cloud. These have proven to be more resilient into the digital workplace management, the business continuity, the let's say the business as usual in the never normal space. These are the countries where we've seen much more agility, much more flexing, much more rotation into this new spire.
That's why we feel that digital inclusion is critical here, because if we're not careful, we will actually, based on this COVID-19, realize that the world will become completely bifurcated between the ones who are fluent in digital technologies versus the ones who are not. And they will just become further behind. And that is something that we take very, very serious, all the mobile operators globally.
What is the greatest challenge to overcome in the short term?
I feel that there will be a bounce back in, let's say, 6 to 12 months. And the reason for that is today we're seeing a contraction in demand because the business has been paralyzed and they actually can't function. And that's causing a slowdown, which all digital businesses may be seeing to a certain extent.
It was kind of commoditized. We didn't even realize about connectivity, but now believe people are starting to look for resilience in connectivity, consistency in services in connectivity, and so all this type of thing. Connectivity is not an optional service to have anywhere.
To kickstart sales of smartphones or handsets again, we see that there has been a dip. We forecast some 16% down on sales, 2020 versus 2019. Now 2021, that will go up again. We are forecasting 11% up.
So most customers will not want to go and have that physical contact with people. Therefore, we must be able to adapt ourselves and our logistics networks and our delivery capabilities to be able to adjust to the realities, the new normal, as we call it, with this pandemic situation.
Before we had a very disparate, different experience between digital channels and physical channels, retail, for instance, right? We're seeing now a more need from the customers to have an omni-channel consistent experience across all the channels so that people shift from one to the other in a more natural way and the experiences do not vary that much.
How should companies adapt to face this challenge?
We have to learn to live with this pandemic. Life cannot just close down. We, as a postal organization, have always found ways and means in which we can be able to adjust our products and services, the packaging, the delivery times, and where we can be able to deliver them, the locations we can deliver to the citizens. So these are some of the innovative ways we are trying to cope up with this pandemic.
And therefore, planning our infrastructure and our capabilities for a volatile environment that can potentially require significant scaling is a capital allocation challenge that we have to work through.
It's important that they need to leverage this situation to expand into new types of products, into new partnerships that makes them beyond the traditional voice and data services. They go into value-added services across those. So data usage and partnerships around that are going to be critical to identify the new services that will then make them thrive in the future.
So clearly you will see more entertainment applications. We will see more mobile money, M-Pesa type of applications coming our way, becoming more of a touchless society. So cloud is increasing as well in interest, where the connection to the cloud is done through mobile predominantly.
Before, broadband was almost commodity. Now, the new or never normal lifestyle make sure that opens for differentiation in types of service offerings on connectivity.
What new business models are likely to emerge in the medium to long term?
Future-ready businesses are more adaptable at their core. They have a culture which embraces change. They have a culture that is ready to experiment and fail. And they have a culture where resource reallocation is done more easily than businesses that may be used to a more predictable environment.
So what I imagine in the near future, is more collaborations, more involvement of the private sector in the universal postal union at the headquarter level, as well as engaging with them to do the logistics and all other supply chain issues with which they have common interest.
I think with the introduction of 5G, we're going to get an ultra low latency and a very high speed. There will be applications that are only able to run on 5G. This will be several years down the road, but we can already see now that entertainment is going to really be one of the key winners in 5G.
As a conclusion, all this is ecosystem enabled. So partnerships, understanding that it's not only about I want it all. It's not only about it's about me only. It's about an ecosystem, and I share my part. I'm really good at this space, but I share the pie with other players that will basically help us expand and go into new types of services to thrive.
What new opportunities will this create?
So between improved connectivity, greater platforms, I think we will see more shared economy models coming out of it. We can enable the public sector and private sector to work together in areas like healthcare and education.
The challenge we have experienced over the years is that those require resources, that require planning and strategy. Sometimes we don't get those resources as fast as we need them. So what is the best thing to do? Then we have to have a business model. We need to privatize some of these postal organizations if they cannot be able to be sustainable, and if the government is not able to provide them with the resources that they need. And then this will lead to mergers, this will lead to collaborations.
I think the world will become much more digital, and we need to make sure that we are keeping up with the digital capabilities. And that's where inclusion is so important, that we do not create a society that is bifurcated between the people that understand technology and use technology versus the one who are not using technology.
So we see similar things eventually happening here, because the opportunities about communication or about ecosystem play that will require transfer of data. So data residency is going to be more challenging, because if I want to innovate, I need to share.
How will these changes transform the industry value chain?
In the areas like healthcare, come as an obvious one, but equally some of the largest supply chains that we're talking about. If you want to build real resilience, we've got to look at even using competitors using each other's supply chain in a time of crisis.
UPU is an intergovernmental organization dealing with the global postal network. Now, if 70% of the private of the business is outside the network of the union, then there's a question of the role and relevance of the union itself.
You're seeing many of the global telcos discussing about how can they create this layer of digital services that trade at a much higher multiple, because they will have a multiplier effect into reaching the customers. They will have a much higher agility to innovate and to reach to the final solutions that purely communication commoditized services, right?
We've actually developed something called a digital declaration within GSMA, and I think we now have 100, and I'm not sure exactly, but more than 100 CEOs of big corporations that have signed up to this digital declaration. And it's an aspirational goal, if you would like, but it's a way of taking responsibility. So I understand the dangers of being exposed on internet, but it's certainly the dangers or the positive things certainly outweighs the danger.
For more insights from each of our speakers, please take a look at our exclusive individual in-depth interviews available on our website.